Hello world, welcome in to a Saints pregame live chat. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL's digital sports producer. If there's any audio issues, make sure to let me know. I can't hear myself from some technical difficulties, so I'm going to have to rely on y'all, but we're going to get through it. First off, obviously, week one, preseason, Saints, Ravens. It's a preseason game. We're all excited about it, but this game definitely means a good bit more to the Saints and to their upcoming season, the plans, who's going to play it in key spots than it would have in other seasons. In the Drew Brees era seasons where you know who your quarterback's going to be, it doesn't matter what happens in preseason at that position, assuming no one gets hurt. You know what you're going to get. That's not the case this year. We have a quarterback battle. Have you heard? There's a quarterback battle with the Saints. And, that's what's going to get talked about. That's what's going to get repeated. It's what's going to get analyzed. But there are a lot of other questions to answer at the same time. So without further ado, actually, there will be further ado because I want to remind you all, make sure to tune in to WWL 870 AM, FM 1053 for the game live. Make sure to drop your questions into the chat, and I'll try to answer them while we're live here. And obviously, make sure to check out Audacy.com/WWL for all the latest coverage from Audacy and WWL's sports team. Obviously, we got Bobby and Christian in the studio. We got Steve Geller working on the sidelines. But, today is going to be all about the backups. Who's going to solidify themselves on this roster. And so I'll drop in the depth chart. Let's see if I can figure that out. There we go. It knocked me out. Hold on. There it is. Okay, we got it. Okay, so this is the depth chart that the Saints sent out yesterday. Obviously, you see a pretty loud or in there. They have not declared who will get the first snap between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Sean Payton did declare the other day that it doesn't really matter who gets the first snap. Whoever gets the first snap today will likely not next week. They're going to flip kind of that situation. He said that, they split preseason games into phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And that's just generally speaking is what you're looking at in terms of, okay, phase 1, it's mostly starters playing 18 to 22 snaps. I don't know exactly how that's going to split out between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. That's a question. Because you'd imagine you want to get both of them a decent number of snaps, but you also don't want to send out your potential starting quarterback to play behind a backup offensive line, right? You don't want to end up in a situation where one guy gets hurt because he's in a quarterback battle and you have him in there behind guys you wouldn't have out there on game day. So that's something to keep in mind. How much run do the quarterbacks get compared to how much run does the offensive line get, the starting offensive line, which is remarkably healthy at this point in the season, so you don't overwork them either. Obviously, beyond that, you're talking about, okay, who's the starting wide receiver? Traquan Smith missed practice this week. I would be stunned to see him suit up today. I don't know if he's been ruled officially inactive yet. As far as I can tell, he has not, but I wouldn't expect to see him out there today considering he has missed more than a week of practice. He was spotted on the sidelines on Wednesday in street clothes, which is good to see him around the team. I'm guessing he did some conditioning work beforehand or after, but he still is not out at practice. I wouldn't expect him to play. We'll stick on that offense for now. So that means your wide receivers are, Marquez Callaway, who looks every bit like a number one receiver. He's definitely going to play the X. He's definitely going to be a target hog in the regular season. I don't know how much work he's actually going to get because his situation is so entrenched. That why would you run him out for extended snaps knowing you need him to be that kind of leader in that wide receiver group? So he might get, he might be in the group that gets the fewest number of snaps. Behind him are a few interesting names. Obviously, you have Lil Jordan Humphrey, you have Chris Hogan, you have Jake Lampman, you have Tommy Lee Lewis, you have Aesop Winston, Jalen McCleskey. He is listed there, but he has been sent to IR, so he will not be active. And then you have a bunch of unknowns. You have Kawan Baker, 7th round pick. Ty Montgomery, who is a full-time wide receiver this season. He had spent last year kind of split. Obviously, he played running back in week 17. This year, he is a full-time wide receiver. So you have that, and you just got to see who steps up. I am fascinated to see Lil Jordan Humphrey today because I think he's going to be he's going to be targeted. He's going to get his chances to shine today. He's slimmed down. Anyone who hasn't seen him at training camp and is seeing him for the first time on the broadcast today is probably going to notice he looks a lot different, a lot leaner than last year. He also cut off his dreads, which we talked to him about the other day. He said he had them for 7 years. He's looking for a change. And I don't know. I think that is almost like a psychological thing when I see him that makes him look smaller, even without losing any weight, I think. But he has lost weight too. He said that was a plan going into the offseason, which is almost the opposite of what we saw with Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson, they went in last year both were about 6'4", about 225, 230 pounds. But as Lil Jordan slimmed down in the offseason, Juwan Johnson kept eating. He bulked up 240 pounds, converted to tight end. And he's gonna be an interesting guy to watch behind Adam Troutman over there at tight end. Let's see if we have any questions here. Got a lot of who dats. Jeff, thanks for chiming in. Good name, by the way. Time does Bobby and Christian Garrett come on? Not Garrett, it's Garrick. Let me just double check here, make sure I have the schedule down. I just don't want to tell y'all the wrong time. Give me one moment. All right, first take was at 2. That is over. Countdown to kickoff begins at 4 with Bobby and Christian Garrick, and that'll bring you up to game time. So I'm going to get off here about then, so you can mark that one down in your calendar. Make sure to tune in for that at 4 p.m. Obviously, you can see it up there at the top left. AM 870, FM 105.3. You can get it on the Audacy app as well. I recommend everyone download that, and please head over to YouTube if you're not watching on YouTube already, and make sure to subscribe. I have the ticker down there, which gives you the channel. It is youtube.com/C/WWL Sports. If you do a Google search for YouTube WWL Sports, it should come up there as well. Make sure you subscribe there. We're putting content up there every day, and I'd love to hear from y'all what you want to see a little more of. Okay, Jeff, back again. Who will be the starting wide receiver 1 and 2 when the season starts? That's a good question because we already know Michael Thomas is not going to be there for the start of the season. He's recovering from injury, but he will be on the sideline tonight. And while that might seem minor, it is a very significant step for Michael Thomas as the Saints try to get him back into the fold. There's a rift that appears to have formed between the team and Michael Thomas. Sean Payton expects some frustration before camp about the timing of his surgery, which happened in June, and we'll keep him out to start the season. There are reports Michael Thomas didn't answer calls. MT then put out a tweet that suggested the Saints were trying to damage his reputation. Obviously, that spiraled into trade rumors. Wouldn't go too far into that. It seems like the team and Michael Thomas are on the right path to mending those fences, getting back to business, and that's the best case scenario for everybody involved, I think. So I think they're working that out, and seeing him on the sideline tonight, which was a request of Sean Payton, that was reported by Jeff Duncan of NOLA.com. I think that's going to go a long way, but that doesn't do anything for the Saints on the field. And I think wide receiver 1 when the season starts, no question in my mind, it's Marquez Callaway. I don't think that there's any debate. He has been the wide receiver 1 throughout camp, and he will continue to be the wide receiver 1. I think Traquan Smith is your Z receiver, the wide receiver 2, if you will, on the opposite side. I think that's going to happen. He just needs to get back on the field. But even if he does, I think that X receiver role fits Marquez Callaway's game a lot better anyway. So even with a healthy Traquan Smith, I still think the quote-unquote wide receiver 1, I really hate using that term because it makes it sound like there's a pecking order, when in reality it's just the routes you're running and the responsibilities you have, and where you line up on the field, whether you line up on the line of scrimmage or a little back from the line of scrimmage. That's what you're talking about. It's not really a 1-2 thing, but I think Marquez Callaway is going to be that X receiver, that wide receiver 1, and Traquan Smith is still going to be that guy who gets targeted in a lot of downfield routes. He's going to run a lot of downfield combinations with the tight end. That's what you do at the Z. And he could work in the slot. I think they are going to end up working Marquez Callaway into the slot too. And it's going to be a question of who's that third receiver. But I think both of those guys, even though you won't see one tonight in Traquan Smith, are going to be those guys. And Lil Jordan has a really great opportunity to establish that role. Obviously, you have veterans Chris Hogan, Ty Montgomery. I think if I was a betting man, which I am occasionally because it's legal now, is I would bet on Chris Hogan to kind of secure that veteran role. I mean, he's looked good throughout camp. He's not the most explosive receiver in the world. He never was. He's a sure-handed guy. He runs very precise routes. And I think that's what the Saints are going to be looking for early in the season. You know, you're going to see guys like Lil Jordan, assuming he makes the roster, and Tommy Lee Lewis worked in. But I think if you're ranking 1, 2, 3, you got to go Marquez, Traquan, Chris Hogan at the top. Good question, though. And again, great name. Great name. Okay. What players should the Ravens watch out for? That's a good question. And I think I teased it a little bit. I'm going to stick on the offensive side, and I'm going to say Lil Jordan. Lil Jordan's a guy who has already shown off in preseason in the past. We've seen it. We saw him against the Vikings a few years back. He caught a ball in the middle of the field and just steamrolled people. He's a different type of receiver now than he was at that point. He's not this hulking receiver. He's a big receiver. He can go up and get the ball. I've watched him moss Brian Poole twice in camp in one-on-one reps where he just went up and high-pointed the ball over Brian Poole in good coverage. You know, Brian Poole, I'm not trying to diss on Brian Poole. I think he's a fine player, but he's an inside corner, and he's being asked to play on the outside in those one-on-one reps because that's what they are. So I don't want to sound like I'm coming off negative on Brian Poole here, but these are great plays by Lil Jordan. And they looked a lot, if you remember, like that Week 15 touchdown against the Chiefs last year where Lil Jordan went up on a back shoulder throw from Breeze for a nice touchdown that, brought the Saints. I can't remember if it brought him even, it brought him close. Gave him a chance in that game. They ended up losing. But, he's a guy who presents a massive matchup nightmare along with Juwan Johnson at tight end. Now, he's not going to get these kind of exotic routes of a wide receiver going downfield as often, but he is a guy who it's going to be tough for a linebacker to match up with him. He's going to run away from people in the middle of the field. It's going to be a question of how precise can he be on his routes, how sure-handed can he be when the ball is thrown his way, and can he gain the trust of the quarterbacks? That's obviously always a factor, and he's got to do it for two people because he doesn't know who the starter's going to be. No one does, except for maybe Sean Payton, unless if he's not telling us the truth and he's already made a decision, which who knows. But another good question. I want to go on to defense now. It's we're about halfway through this, so let me share the defensive depth chart. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, we got defense. We got defense. Now, one thing to keep in mind, again, we have injuries on the defensive side of the ball too. So Pete Werner, Peyton Turner, the top 2 draft picks, who also rhyme, from April's draft, both missed multiple days of practice. I want to say Wednesday, Thursday last week. Sean Payton was asked on Thursday if those guys would be available, if they were ruled out. He wouldn't rule them out. He said he wanted to talk to the trainer. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both don't play, but you do really want to see those guys out there. These are hugely important reps for rookies and even second-year players who didn't get a preseason last year. There are going to be instances where you're kind of hesitant to throw a guy into the fire in the regular season, not seeing them in the preseason, getting an idea of what they look like at game speed. Sean Payton said if we want to make mistakes, we want to make them fast. And that's just an indication that you want to see them in game speed reps. There's only so much that you can learn going against your own defense or your own offense because you've seen them every day for a month. Like, what their tendencies are. You know what you're leaning on. You know a general idea of what the offense is going to do, what they're trying to beat you with, what they're trying to work on. So there's only so much you can get from that. These preseason reps where you are actually playing against a live offense and you have to figure out what they're doing and show that you understand the concepts at the NFL level, that's huge for a rookie. So you want to see them out there. Hopefully one or at least one, hopefully both get to play, and you get to see Pete Werner and Peyton Turner out there who, I haven't seen as much from Pete Werner. I think he's coming along a little more slowly, which isn't a surprise for a second-round pick. But Peyton Turner has looked beastly in the first few weeks of training camp. He and Sean agreed that he's a much better pass rusher than he is a run stopper right now, which is something he needs to work on. But he has been getting to the quarterback about as easily as anyone I've seen in camp, other than maybe Marcus Davenport, a guy who gets trolled relentlessly, mainly because he was part of a trade that sent 2 first rounders to the Packers, I want to say, but he's been hurt. He has looked good. And I don't think the Saints are ready to quit on Marcus Davenport. They picked up his option for a reason, and I think he's going to have a season that helps to show why he was picked there. One thing that stood out to me on this depth chart is Quan Alexander at the will linebacker spot. It's not surprising to me that he is at the top of the depth chart at linebacker. It's surprising to me that he is for the first preseason game, knowing that he just got signed. He's coming off that injury, and you're projecting here, right? He might not even play tonight. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he doesn't, because he hasn't even been fully worked back into team reps at practice yet. But I think this projects the level of confidence the Saints have in Quan. That whether he's going to play in this game tonight, again, I would be surprised if he gets more than at most a couple snaps. He's the guy. He's the guy at will linebacker that they're gonna lean on, and I think it's going to be up to Zach Bone or Pete Warner to kind of secure that rotational role. I don't think either of them is gonna beat him out there. The other one to see is Caden Ellis at the Sam linebacker spot. Saints really don't run a lot of base defense. At least they haven't in recent years. Maybe they do this year with some of the changes. But, the depth chart is kind of misleading in the sense that C.J. Gardner-Johnson, C.D. Deuce, while he's listed at the backup strong safety spot, he's really the nickel corner, which is a position that's on the field probably 90% of the time for the Saints. So C.J. is the starter at nickel corner. Caden would be that guy apparently in the base reps, which again the Saints don't run a lot of. So that's what you have there. Obviously Marcus Williams, Malcolm Jenkins. These are positions that can be a big problem if you don't have the guys. The Saints probably, other than the offensive line, safety is the best stocked position on the team in terms of talent, in terms of veteran leadership. You don't have any young players in that group. Bryce Thompson has been a very interesting guy. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make the roster. Obviously, P.J. Williams is a converted corner, so he's more of a nickel safety, kind of like C.J., or nickel corner, kind of like C.J. But you have a ton of depth there. You have a ton of great tacklers, a ton of really good players, and you got to lean on that as much as possible at that position. Let's see. Go through some questions here. Again, the game is at 6 o'clock. You can watch it on Fox. Also, make sure, if you can't watch on TV or you would rather listen to the great Deuce McAllister and the new voice of the Saints, Mike Hoss, which I would highly recommend. They've been great. Tune in to WWL Radio, AM 870, FM 105.3, and you'll be in for a great time. The maiden voyage of Deuce and the Moose, as they have been nicknamed without their consent, I think, thus far. But we could probably come up with something better. If you have any ideas, throw them in the chat. Let's see. Let me go back through, see if I missed any at the top. Again, throw your comments, throw your questions in here, and I will try to answer them. Uh-oh, we have a Ravens fan. That's fine. Hope you're doing great. Hope Baltimore's lovely. Who do you think will be under center? Jeff Luckett with all the good questions. Well, tonight, assuming they don't rest anyone along the offensive line, which I would assume they don't because they're in a quarterback battle and you want to see a quarterback with their normal center. It's going to be Eric McCoy, there's no question. Eric McCoy is the center. Cesar Ruiz is a guard. I had this debate with one person on Twitter a few weeks ago. I don't know if it was a debate, it was a conversation, but there's really no question at center. I think that people, because Cesar Ruiz was a guard in college, people seem to think that position shift is going to happen eventually. It's not. He's a guard until and this is the season where you're going to look at and say, okay, he struggled last year as a rookie. He was changing positions, no preseason, but he's a guard on this roster. And unless you think that he can't play guard, right? Unless you think that it is just impossible for him to pick up that position and do it well, then he's a guard. Because if you don't know if Eric McCoy can play guard, you also have never seen Cesar Ruiz play center at the NFL level. So if you make that shift, you have essentially two guys playing at positions that you don't know. Well, you don't know what they have to offer at those positions, right? So if you make that switch, you have two question marks at highly important positions. If you leave them where they are and trust Cesar Ruiz has the aptitude to become a better guard than he showed last year, which I believe he is, and that's what the reports have been out of camp, then you only have one question mark, and it's a much smaller question mark because you have seen him for a season. You know what he needs to work on, you know what he needs to improve, and he's had an entire offseason to do that. Teron Armstead, Eric McCoy both said repeatedly that the game appears to have slowed down for him. He's really picking up the offense. He's understanding his assignments a lot better this time around. And that's not a surprise. Losing preseason, as I said before, is a huge thing for these young players to get these game reps and to learn and to go from that to going back to practice and being able to work on things. During the regular season, that's a lot harder to do because you're going back to practice and you're scouting and you're watching film on opponents and you're getting ready for next week. There's not as much time to do technique work to really kind of improve. You're just in the fire and you got to stop and not get burned. All the while, Drew Brees is behind you, and if you let that guy get hurt because you missed a block, you're going to get some serious anger directed at you, to use a PG term there. So it's going to be Eric McCoy, but Cesar Ruiz is an important guy. You know, he's going to be someone to watch at guard for sure. Let's see, any other questions? I saw Freeman having a good day, along with Harris and Callaway in defense. I say Granderson, Passignon, and Adebo. I think this is responding to someone else. But yeah, I mean, I think Devonta Freeman is a guy who's going to have a role today. You know, he's a veteran, but, you know, you have two guys ahead of him in Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. I would be surprised to see Kamara get much work at all. If he plays at all, you know what you have in Kamara. You don't need to run him out there for this game if you don't want to. Murray's the same way. You know what you have. You don't need to see what you have from him. I think this is going to be a game where Devonta Freeman is going to be asked to show he's still got that game speed. I think he did last year with the Giants. I was actually impressed with him watching him with the Giants because he was kind of a cast-off from Atlanta. You know, he kind of just unceremoniously said goodbye. But I think he's still a talented and elusive and powerful running back, and he can be a weapon in certain situations. And I think that's why the Saints brought him in. I would be highly surprised if he doesn't make the roster, but that would probably mean losing Dwayne Washington, who's a big special teams contributor, unless you want to keep another running back, which always could be the case. But no, I think Devonta Freeman's a guy who's competing for a roster spot. He's going to have a big role. I don't know if he'll have a big day, but I wouldn't be surprised. He's going to be out there against young players, backups, a lot of the game. So, yes. Harris and Callaway and Deontay. Yeah, I haven't talked about Deontay yet. I think he's another guy who you don't want to see out there too much. And it's not about age. It's not about too much work. He's a small guy. You don't want him taking too many hits that are unnecessary. He missed a lot of games last season with injury, and you want to be very, very calculated with how you use him because you need him on kick returns. You need him on punt returns. He is the starter on kick returns. You know, he is the most important player on kick returns and punt returns, and you want to make sure you have him healthy when you need him. So I don't think you're going to see a ton of Deontay Harris today. On the defensive side, yeah, Carl Granderson, big role this year backing up Marcus Davenport probably. Tano Passignon. I'm just trying to practice because it's a difficult name to say, but yes, that dude is big. I mean, all these guys are huge. Peyton Turner's huge. Carl Granderson's huge. Marcus Davenport's huge. Even Cam Jordan, who is now the smallest Saints defensive end, is a big dude. Tano is a different breed. He's massive. And I didn't really appreciate it until I stood next to him at his press conference, and he's just hulking. And, you know, I haven't seen a ton of him in live reps. Didn't have a chance to go back and watch the Chiefs last year to see, you know, what he looks like in a game. But it's not hard to imagine when you see a guy that big. It's going to be a hard person to block. And I'm very interested in seeing what he can do out there today. Let's see. Okay, we got the Ravens fan back. Happy to see you, and I think I agree with you. We will see a lot of Trace McSorley tonight. I don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to play. That might have been reported already. I haven't seen it. But yeah, if he does, it will not be much. And yeah, you're going to see a lot of Trace McSorley. You're going to see a lot of Brent Huntley. You know, but you know these guys are, you know, players for a reason. You know, they're still a live team trying to beat you, and so it doesn't really matter who the opponent is. You want to see quality reps. One guy who we haven't talked about yet, and who is probably playing in the biggest game of his own for years, is Ken Crawley, who has the opportunity to take that outside corner spot across to Marshawn Lattimore. He is in a huge spot tonight, if he shows that he can be that guy, and they don't have to continue to look for an outside corner, that's massive for him. He's been in the league for a few years. He's been with the Saints before. He's a solid player. He's looked really good in camp, and I don't think that the Saints would want to be in a situation where Ken Crawley is their starting outside corner, not because they don't like him, just because, that's not what the plan would be. But he's looked good. Maybe he can be that guy, and Sean Payton can stop calling that position a must, which is something he has continued to say. And then behind him, you're going to see what happens. Paulson Adebo's going to get his shot. He has been solid in camp. He seems to be improving. I don't know if he's ready to be that starter right away, but he's going to get important reps. He's going to be an important guy on the roster, so he's going to be another guy to watch. Ken, got to root for Ken. Brian Poole's going to be another guy who's going to be an inside corner. He's not going to really be in contention for that outside spot, but he will have an important role because, like I said before, the Saints play a lot of sub packages. He's in nickel dime. He's going to be on get a chance to be on the field, and he's got to be able to hold up. All right, let's see. Hold on. I want to pull up the roster projections that I put together the other day so that when I tell you my answer to this very, very useful question, I'm not contradicting my own predictions. Well, can't find it. So let's pull up the Saints roster instead. Defensive tackle. It's going to be a position that you have to watch. The two positions on the Saints defense that really got just gutted this offseason, cornerback, defensive tackle. You had Sheldon Rankins leaving in free agency. You also had Malcolm Brown leaving in free agency. You have David Onyemata out for 6 games with a suspension. He tested positive for a banned substance. So there are a few names there you'll remember, but by and large, this is going to be a new group in there trying to man the middle and doing so with an under-leveraged secondary, right? It's a lot easier to stop the run when you know the corners are going to lock down on the outside, and you don't have to worry about sending any help their way. But, if they have to over-leverage themselves to the second corner spot in Ken Crawley or whoever it ends up being, it's going to make it more important than ever that the defensive line holds up against the run, which they have in the past, and they're going to have to prove they can do again. So the guys you have there, obviously, you have Josiah Bronson, you have Malcolm Roach, who we saw a little bit of last year, Jalen Dalton, Albert Huggins, RJ McIntosh, obviously Onyemata, who we mentioned, who I imagine will be playing tonight, Christian Ringo, another guy who's flashed quite a bit, Shai Tuttle, if you remember the Thanksgiving stiff arm of Matt Ryan. That's the end of the list. And so you got to pick 4 or 5 guys out of that group. My guess is obviously Shai is going to make that roster. I don't see Malcolm Roach missing. I think those are going to be your 2 starters. Then you have I haven't seen McIntosh. I couldn't tell you high or low, but he was a draft pick for a reason. He's going to get a chance. I would put my money on Christian Ringo and probably Jalen Dalton as those guys, maybe Josiah Bronson. But they're another position with a chance to prove. I don't know if there's been a preseason with more to prove than this one. Here's another good one. Okay. I'm going to take this depth chart down really quick. And this will be the final question. Again, Saints kickoff against Baltimore. In Baltimore at 6 p.m. over on Fox. You can listen live on WWL Radio, AM 870, FM 105.3. The debut of the new voice of the Saints, Mike Hoss, alongside Saints legend Deuce McAllister. Make sure to listen to that. It's a good time. But yes, going back, last question, Adam Troutman, very interesting player. I don't like looking at it as, Adam Troutman's going to replace Jared Cook. Nick Fournette's going to replace Josh Hill. That's the very easy way to kind of slot people in and out. It's just not going to be the case, right? You're going to restructure that kind of mold around what these players on the roster now do well. And while Adam Troutman is an excellent tight end, I think, and he's an athletic guy. He is not a move tight end the way that a Jared Cook or Jimmy Graham would have been a move tight end, right? He's more of a Zach Ertz type player. That's not a good way to put it, but he's not a monster athlete. He's not a downfield threat the way that a Jimmy Graham or a Jared Cook would be. He's going to be very good on the intermediate routes. He's already a good blocker. So in that alone, you can't really say, he's going to replace Jared Cook, because blocking was never Jared Cook's strong suit. So you're not going to have him do what Jared Cook did, because you can get a lot more out of him in the run game. So that's already going to change his role. It makes it so you don't need that Josh Hill behind him. There's a reason Josh Hill had a role. And it was because you didn't have an every down tight end in Jared Cook. And every down means he can do everything on every down. He can block. He can get downfield. He can do whatever. Jared Cook, while being an excellent downfield tight end, was not a great blocker. And that's been the case his entire career. Josh Hill was a great blocker, not a great downfield threat. So it's, you end up in a situation that you have a very good all-around tight end, and now you're trying to find out who can be the weapon. And so the guy, Juwan Johnson, I mentioned him earlier, 240, he can move. He's a converted wide receiver. You're not going to need him to block the way that you would have normally from a tight end, right? Because you have Adam Troutman. So that means that he's going to be able to be aggressive. You can be more aggressive in how you use him downfield. You can run a lot of 12 personnel 22, which is 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and you essentially have another wide receiver there. And you feel a lot better about Adam Troutman as a receiver when you ask him to be that than you did Josh Hill. So I really like Troutman. I think he's going to be a supercharged Josh Hill, if that makes sense. I just don't think that saying, he's Jared Cook in that sense is the way to look at it, because they do so completely different things. But the tight end position, you also have a few other interesting names. I don't know if anyone is going to fly out at you. I imagine they'll keep 3. I think they'll keep Nick Vannett as well, as a more traditional blocking tight end. When you want to go jumbo, you want to just try to ram the ball down someone's throat. He's a guy you can use and take advantage of. Or if you're trying to throw someone off, if you're trying to have a tendency breaker type play, it's a guy who can get in the game, who can do some different things and be a weapon. So I think those are the 3 guys you're going to see. They also have Josh Peterson, the son of former Eagles coach Doug Peterson, former Eagles coach now hanging out with the Bears apparently, Doug Peterson. Seen him a few times in the playoffs. Yeah, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of mystery in terms of who makes the roster. The question's going to be, do you keep 2 or 3? Which most seasons the Saints will keep 3 tight ends. You also have Derek Griffin working in there, as well as Ethan Wolf. I expect you're going to see 3 tight ends kept. It's going to be Troutman, Johnson, and Vannett. But hey, what do I know? All right. We got someone trolling Taysom. But hey, think about it this way. We just went through all of this, and I didn't even spend that much time talking about the quarterback at all. That is the amazing thing about this Saints offseason. There's been so much. I didn't even mention Brett Maher. The Saints have a different kicker. Will Lutz isn't there. Will Lutz had surgery. Who's Brett Maher? I know who he is. He's going to wear number 6, but it's just one of the many things. We have to. Can Brett Maher kick field goals? Is he a trustworthy kicker? I think so. He's got a long. He can go. A long leg. No, his legs are normal sized, but he has a long range leg. He can hit from 60 plus. He's hit from 63, which would tie the Saints record if he did it in the Superdome or in a Saints jersey. He's hit twice from 62 in his 2 years with the Dallas Cowboys. Rather, he was out of the NFL last season. But is he a dependable kicker? Is he a guy you can send out there in the 4th quarter of a game, needing a field goal to tie or take the lead? And you're like, okay, yeah, Brett, he's got this. I don't know. We're going to find out. There's so much to figure out. And I don't know if I've ever looked forward to a preseason game quite as much as I'm looking forward to this one tonight. Again, we're a little past 4. Make sure to tune in to WWL Radio. You got Bobby and Christian kicking off the pregame show over on AM 870, FM 105.3, WWL, and the Audacy app. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Yes, I'm going to selfishly plug my own Twitter handle. It's over there at the bottom left, at Jeff_Nowak. As you can see, I am not out in Baltimore today. But I will be covering the game from here. But I had a full year to figure out how to do that, so I've gotten pretty good at it. So make sure to follow me over there. I'll be sharing content throughout the game. Make sure to head over to Audacy.com/WWL. We got a ton of great pregame content that you should check out. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/C, the letter, /WWL Sports. You can just search for YouTube WWL Sports. It'll pop up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit me up. Send me a DM. They're open. Tell me if there's anything you'd like to see, any coverage, any videos, any type of breakdowns, and I'll see what I can do. Finally, I'm going to throw out a score prediction, even though it's impossible to get it right because the preseason and the result doesn't matter. I think the Ravens win 24-17. I think the Saints have a little trouble moving the offense a little bit because they're trying to shift in and out of quarterbacks. The offense is not going to have a ton of continuity, but they'll get on the board a couple times. I think they're going to settle for field goals in situations. They might go for it in other times because they want to see what Brett Maher has to offer in terms of consistency with that leg. He kicked the other day for the first time in front of the media. He made 4 or 6 field goals. Looks solid. Kicks were on point. A couple drifted right, but good contact. He looks every bit like an NFL kicker, and we're just going to see what happens. But yeah, 24-17, I think I said. I think I might have changed it. I don't know. Again, score doesn't matter. Where you're looking for just cohesiveness on offense, quarterbacks getting in and out of the huddle, not a ton of delay penalties, not a ton of procedural penalties. Look at the play itself, not necessarily the result. And especially when you're looking at the quarterbacks, look at the demeanor. Look at how they're leading the huddle. Look at how they are commanding the offense, right? If a drive bogs down because the defense makes a couple of great plays, it's not don't hold that against the quarterback. Look at what the quarterback has done and is doing. What decisions are they making? Are they throwing dangerous passes? Are they putting receivers in good positions to catch the ball and make a play? Those are the types of things you want to watch, not necessarily the result. I know it's hard sometimes. It's a result-based league, but there's a real possibility that Jameis Winston comes out and struggles. Taysom Hill comes in, and it's the preseason, and you're just not geared up for a running quarterback, and all of a sudden he has a big game running the ball. I don't think that that's anything you didn't know already, right? So watch the offense, watch how it moves, how it communicates. Are guys out of position? Are guys running the wrong routes, or is the quarterback expecting a different route? Those are the types of things I'm watching for and what I'd recommend y'all to watch for. And that is my long-winded rant. Thanks for everyone who stopped by. Thanks for everyone who dropped in a comment. I've had plenty of them. Sorry if I didn't get to anyone. But we'll end it with Rachel. I feel Taysom is going to surprise a lot of people. I do too. The question is, can he surprise a lot of people by being better than Jameis Winston? That's the question. But I'm a Taysom fan. I know I've seen firsthand some of the limitations that he is as a passer. But people can improve. People can work on things and get better. He's worked a lot in training camp about going through his progressions and making sure he's not rushing to run and missing open receivers. And that's a big thing that he needs to work on. Also identifying zone coverage and how to beat it. But that's what I'll leave you with. Thanks again, everyone. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL digital sports producer. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. Check out Audacy.com/WWL. And about an hour, 50 minutes until kickoff. And let's see what happens. All right. Peace.